Welcome to the Partytrick podcast, where we inspire and empower you to elevate every day.
Today, I talk with Sonya from Doña Vega Mezcal. We met in Aspen a few years ago, and her brand has one of my favorite brands and design ever. The product is delicious, and she is a baller. Tune in. Hi, Sonya. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Virginia. Thank you for having me.
I am so thrilled to be chatting. Sonia and I connected years ago in Aspen. She moved to Aspen from New York, and her brand, Dona Vega, is so cool and so delicious. And I would love if you would tell our listeners just a little bit about it.
Yes, of course. Yeah, we met through a mutual friend and moved to Aspen and started a mezcal company in New York. And then when we passed the pandemic, decided to relocate to Aspen and have the company here. But the whole idea was to bring an approachable mezcal to the market. I feel like people have a weird perception of it being overly bearing, smoky, gasoline and it's actually not that if you find the right one. So our whole take was finding one that people can appreciate. That along with being from the fashion industry, had a creative label, having Bruce Weber's team design it and be young and playful.
I was going to say, I'm glad you mentioned that. Your branding is so on point and absolutely phenomenal. Like, I just love the look and the design. And I think, people eat with their eyes, they drink with their eyes as well. And so having bright, colorful, cheerful, but super well designed, I think it really just enhances the experience overall.
Well, thank you. I mean, I think
Yeah.
everything in today's world is creative. And
Yeah.
labels can be a little too sophisticated or too positioned. And it's really about one's own discovery and curiosity on what you want to do, whether it be an event or whether it be with the spirit and just having fun with the moments in your life.
Yeah. And I think also having your background kind of in PR or fashion prior, like you were bound to end up with something that was going to be beautiful as well
Well,
and have that great, yeah. So, yeah. Okay, so tell me, I know that you love great glassware.
yes. As I've
Tell
always
me
been
about
obsessed.
this.
And
When
I'm
did
not,
this start? Yeah.
I don't know when it started. When we got it, we moved here living in Los Angeles and we had this great home and it was up in the Hollywood Hills. And we would do a lot of dinners. And I just felt like a table setting. This is something when I did not know anything about entertaining whatsoever. Not that I do now, but
I think you do.
but glassware could make it quirky, could make it sophisticated. It could kind of lay out the table and what you wanted to achieve with the plates, maybe not because you have basic white plates, the flatware, but the glassware just could bring that creative element.
I think that's something that people always think about. Okay, what is my flatware? Or how am I going to serve my napkin? Like, what is my napkin fold going to be? But getting like just thinking outside the box through glassware, I don't know. It's not typically the first response. So I love that.
And
Um,
also like
yeah.
vintage glassware, like champagne. I guess it started with champagne glasses because my stepfather always had these really cool old fashioned champagne glasses. And I find the tall ones hard to drink out of. And I also like the Art Deco era and having those coupes sets a tone.
Yeah. I think you're so spot on and it transports you a little bit, right? Like
Yes.
it's not, I don't know.
Yeah.
I find that it takes you back in time and I think that's a really good thing. Kind of fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love that. Okay. So tell me a little bit, how did you start? Like when you came up with the idea for Doña Vega, like how did you put it all together? What's your foundation and founding story in a way?
I honestly, it started with having dinners because, okay, let's do a mezcal. What's going to be one that's going to be well received? Like we're going to do our research. We're going to do simultaneously creative label and get the packaging set up. But we had to really figure out the consumer and who that would be and whether and have them taste test along the way. So that
Hmm.
between dinners and my apartment in New York, via our school or the parents and having them over and having Oaxacan nights and there was one restaurant in Brooklyn that always had like a really traditional, like the mole and the Oaxacan foods. We'd have them cater it. It's super casual. And we would set up little different stations with the traditional copitas and the different profiles and kind of get feedback from everybody. It was really
Yeah.
play mode for us because I didn't know we were going to really build a business, but either way, it was fun for us and fun for those that we invited over and our friends.
Totally.
It was something new. It's when Oaxaca was still being like what it was becoming touristy 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago.
Mhm.
So it was something new to learn about. And then mezcal is an education on its own, veering from tequila. So that
Yeah.
rotating started. And a friend of mine who is actually a mom was very good at presenting the table, the presentation, the ceviche. And she was just really good at that just naturally. And she didn't do it and she didn't do a lot of hosting. She was just great. So she helped me out a tremendous amount. And it was just two girls having fun and that element, but we also got the research that we needed for building the brand.
I think that's awesome. I think, again, everyone says start with the customer, right?
Right.
But I think it's about start with that connection. Yeah, because that's going to bring the community. It's going to bring those answers and obviously look outside of it a little bit. But it all kind of starts around gathering people around food and drink
Hmm.
and letting the wheel start turning. And so go talk to the customer, but do it in a communal setting. Don't just like send out tons of surveys. Yes, they're important because they're going to get you different data points that you might not in your home, but the act of bringing people together and having fun and having something memorable, like, that's so much what we're here for. So I love that that's part of your founding story.
Yeah, so that's what really started it because I didn't know where to go with it. I've never built a brand. I've done PR and I've helped launch brands, but I've never actually built one. So again, it was trial and error, but that was a fun every other Friday, Saturday night, we would put that in place, especially in winter in New York. It's just fun to go to somebody's home and chill and relax and linger.
I love that. Okay, so no right or wrong answer here. Do you prefer having people over or going to people's homes, or do you prefer going out? Or a healthy blend of
Like
both?
the same. Because sometimes I guess the winter I prefer to be at people's homes or our home. And
Yeah,
we don't in New York, we would entertain specifically for the Mezcal project. And yes, a couple of dinners, small dinners. Here in Aspen, I found it where people host a lot in their homes, and then it kind of people reciprocate. So that's kind of where we started doing that too, is reciprocation. And I prefer to have like 8 to 10 people max because then it
yeah,
gets too big. But it is nice to go to somebody's house where you just walk in and it's served and it's great. And then it is fun to go out to dinner. I mean, I went out to Matsu with a couple girls the other night, very spontaneous. And it was like a 3 hour blast of just laughing, which was unexpected
I
for
love that.
home because then you have the husband or the kids or whatnot. So again, and we do couples, but I think it has to be a mix to appreciate each one.
I think so. I mean, you see the beauty when you have the diversity and the juxtaposition. So if you do only one thing all the time, it's like people like novelty.
It gets,
I love, yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
it gets routine. And then there's always like chefs around and people it's literally becomes like a repeat. And this is an unusual little town because there's only so many restaurants. There's only so many chefs. And again, it's not normal here, but it's also in New York, there was more variety. So you kind of have to keep it creatively going. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
it does appear routine.
Yeah. Okay, so when you're hosting and having people over, obviously I know you've got a great glassware collection. What are your biggest stressors or pain points around hosting yourself?
I think it's more what's going to throw me a curveball the next
Yeah.
is what it is because it's always something. Especially being a mom, I have two boys, two teenage boys, and they don't drive yet, so they're still dependent on me. So with that, I set the table the night before. I
I
try to
love that.
get
Hmm.
stuff done. Any pre-shopping that needs to be done on my behalf, I get that done. We typically have somebody do the cooking. In winter, we will do the cooking, in which case we do the preparation again the night before or earlier in the day with the raclette. We're huge raclette fans because it's easy, it's interactive, and everybody
Yep.
and brings their own style. My husband's French, so traditional French versus let's add some vegetables in there, let's grill this. So that's time consuming, but if you get it, you lay it all out, the night before, it's easy just to present and it looks like you put this huge effort in and it really was quite effortless.
Yeah. I think also that prep ahead and that planning, getting set up with what you can the night prior allows when the curveballs come, you can enjoy the experience a lot more. I think people like wait to the last minute, they misinterpret how much time it might take. And then a curveball, like a kid needs something. And then you go into it and you're like, oh my God, I didn't even like wash my face or brush my hair. And you feel like you're judged, which you're not, because no one actually really is that aware of another person other than themselves, which
Right.
whatever. But you feel that way and then that radiates. And it's about like going in, feeling confident and successful and setting ahead and prepping in advance like really sets the stage for that.
It's like been 10 years and I feel like I used to do everything and wanted to do it fresh and I wanted to do it myself. And I wanted, why am I making myself crazy? I would make this elaborate, like from lasagna to like all this stuff. They would take days preparation and the day of. And then I was exhausted at the actual event and I wasn't myself because I couldn't enjoy it. So as much as I want to be all hands on, you got to just have to break it up and you have to make it enjoyable for yourself as well as the guests.
Completely. If it's not enjoyable for yourself, then your guests aren't going to have a good time and you're not going to keep doing it. It's like
Right.
a muscle. Like, you got to do it over and over, but like keep it, like, keep it simple, stupid. The whole kiss thing that people say. And I remember as a child and a teenager, I was like, oh my God, it's so annoying, but it's true. Like, keep it simple, do those things, outsource what you can,
Yep.
take out what you can and put it on a nice platter. No one knows the difference. And if it's going to set you up for success, that's ultimately way more important than like making your own lasagna, like pasta dough for lasagna, right?
Right.
Like, it's a
No,
little extra. Yeah.
and I just was so set on I can do this and I wanted to do it. But yeah, outsourcing a bit of it is very helpful. But the dinner table, I've been kind of trying to year by year, the older you get, you want to have the right plate. And it's just also not for anybody's enjoyment, but it's an enjoyment for me to have things beautiful when you walk in. Because again, it sets a tone for the entry in.
Completely. I mean, also, our time's our most precious thing. And so if people are going to share time together, it's nice to have some intentionality behind it
Yeah.
and have it be an enjoyable experience. It doesn't have to be. I mean, it can always be like pizza and paper plates, but having those one off, like more punctuated, more intentional really does change the experience overall.
And what we do too is I always do a buffet. I always because I feel like it's more casual. Anything when it's served just becomes I don't want to say the word uptight really, but it does become more formal and that's not who we are. So for us,
Yeah.
get up, we know it's going to be a casual setting every time you're invited within reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, wait. So tell me, and you may not want to share this in case anyone who's been at one of these, but what's like a hosting nightmare of sorts that's either like gone terribly wrong with hosting at home or when you were doing events kind of more on the PR side? Give me like a kind of crazy horror story. I always get asked these questions.
I mean, I recently it has not been. There was one episode when it was in New York. It was my kids. I did a joint birthday party. They have summer birthdays. It never rains then. We had it at a park. Everything was set up and it started downpouring like I've never seen before. We had to haul everything. It's a place called City Babes. It's a kids' little like playground indoor. And they had a room. So we had to get, I mean, and from the ice cream truck, like the little cart, everything had to get shifted. It was horrible. We're soaking wet. I had worked a full day thinking I was going to waltz right into it. And and then I had my 40th, like 10 years ago, 40th birthday party to follow. And that it was just, and nobody knew, but the hustle of getting into that room was a disaster. And the kids were, yeah, I mean, they were 4 and 6. So they didn't know the difference. And it ended up being a blast, but anywhere from the cartoon people, the face paint, all of it. So that was my worst experience that I had to shuffle through.
I think that's always good. I like love asking and hearing about that because for me, it happens to everyone. And even the people who experience them like a ton and host, there's always something that goes a little bit awry. And knowing that like everyone has some sort of failure and also like you remember that, right? Vividly. Like you can feel it. And I think that's something that sometimes those horrible experiences are some of the more memorable. And you laugh and you're like, oh, I really wish I didn't have to go through that. But at the same point, they do punctuate. And I know I'm using that word a lot today, but like they imprint in a way. Like when
Yeah.
there's novelty, when there's some heightened emotion, whether it's good or bad, you remember those times and like it's kind of a sweet moment looking back in a weird way. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And it
Yeah.
had an absolute blast. It was a huge success, but at the time, it's just like any wedding. There's always a problem with weddings. No one knows it until it's just the back end that it knows it.
Completely. For sure. Okay, so do you have any fun hosting ahead this summer? And do you try actually I've been so curious about this and I've never asked you. Do you bring like Doña Vega into all of like when you're hosting, or do you like to kind of not have I mean, it is so much when we're entrepreneurs, it's so much a part of who we are. Do you bring it into every setting or not every
Yeah.
setting?
We
Okay.
literally every cocktail, every welcome cocktail is going to have a Doña Vega. We don't force up people, but it's there for sure. I typically lie out where if we have something more formal, we'll have a bartender. But if not, if it's more casual, we just have the bar where I have like a gin, a vodka, 2 tequilas, the mezcal, and the mixers next to it. So people can either mix their own, and then I'll have a pre-made Negroni, Mezcal Negroni.
Mhm.
People can just pour if they want to, because that drink holds. You can keep
Yep.
48 hours. It does actually last for a week, but I keep it at 48 hours maximum, where you can serve it. This way, you feel like you're having a cocktail. You don't have to mix it. It doesn't take time from the host or the hostess to combine, stir, serve. It's there. You put it over an ice cube. So that's how I set up my bar as
Yeah.
yourself for the most part.
I love that. I actually didn't know that you could pre-package Negronis that far in advance. That is such a good, helpful hack for people
Yes.
because always having like, again, a well-stocked bar, because like people like having optionality, but having also that choice like made for them. And if they want to just have an easy thing ready to go, that's so good. Word to everyone. That's a great one to pre-batch when you're prepping ahead.
It's also just it's a trending spirit, that and the Manhattan,
Totally.
especially during winter. I think what we're going to switch to is Negroni Spritz, where you have a little bit of soda water in it just to make it more summery. Uh,
Yeah.
if we, I don't have any lined up right now, but when we do, I'm sure we will when we come back from holiday. And
Yeah.
that's just an easy go to. Again, it's just pre preparation to make it stress free.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So cool. And now you've got two boys, like you said,
Yes.
they are high school. How have they informed or directed you, especially kind of in this weird phase where like, and share what you're willing to share here, but like, in terms of their involvement with the brand, have they had any? What do they think about it? How do you feel about alcohol and teenagers in that way? Like, I mean, I grew up in a family where we started drinking wine like at a very young age, small sips here and there. But like, is it totally separate? What do they know? How do you balance that with them?
I mean, I think they don't like people that that drink too much. They think that they kind of look like idiots. So
Yeah.
they're not really into it. However, my husband is French, so he grew up the same way, drinking at dinner, small sips here and there. So we've done the same with them. They
Yeah.
don't like the mezcal. They don't like things harsh. They don't particularly like wine. They like this like espresso liqueur. They took a sip of. Of course, it was pure.
Of course. Sugar. Yeah.
They're not into dabbling in it. So
Yeah.
they've seen the business. They've helped me bottle. They literally have helped me bottle and probably smell the fumes of it too. When I'm making my samples for COVID and having to ship those out, we're home. So everybody was helping me get all of our influencer packets out to I could send to liquor stores or influencers. And so they've been helpful, kind of helping build the business, the design. We'd have boards of ideas of which label we were going to go with, and they'd weigh in on their opinion. So they've been very helpful. The little one has helped with like marketing ideas, and he likes that stuff. And the older one is going to help me at food and wine, be check the door of the guest list. So they do help out. They don't want to work on it full time. I don't think legally they can.
Totally.
No, but they do see the drive. They see the business perspective, the entrepreneurship. So hopefully that will bleed onto them.
I think it's fun incorporating. My kids have always had some level of, I mean, I'm very open and with the kids about my work. And I think it sets an amazing model. Again, that hustle, that drive, that grit, creativity, all hands on deck is such a great model as a mom to impart. And I mean, obviously to each their own, but that's what has been important for me. I mean, my daughter the other day was like, well, I named Partytrick Mom. And I was like, not really. Actually, we had some really great people who helped come up with names. We narrowed it. I wish I could say that she did, but it's fun because they get a sense of ownership and pride. And they love, like for me, I have some really funny, I have these like magic 8 balls that have a little P on the backside, and they're like, I want to give them to all my friends. And they're cute and it's fun. And that you can see them being very proud.
Yeah.
I'm sure, I mean, mine are little, they're 6 and 8. And I feel like they'll probably hate it in high school. I don't know, maybe like high schoolers love parties and I love them in high school. I love them in college. It's been my whole life. But maybe if it's one of those like your mom pushes it on too much, they back off. Who knows? We'll see. Time will tell.
Example, we were at a restaurant in New York, and my son it was like a Sunday, and this woman a table over from us had the slime, and it was just sitting on the table. So Maxine walks over and talks to her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I started a slime company. It's good for kids, but it's also good for like mental and therapeutic. And it's called the Slime Institute, and we're opening it down in Soho." And he's like, "Oh, my mom started a mezcal company. You guys should collaborate."
I
So
love that.
launch, we did the club, we did the Doña Vega, and she was actually an ex-influencer, one of the first agencies that existed. So she had a fantastic audience right in that same demographic that we were pursuing. But again, so the little one's more of that, and he'll chat everybody up, and my mom this and my mom that. So he loves that stuff. But yeah, hopefully they get a drive from it. And if not, they'll find their own passion, I guess, somewhere.
Completely. But it's also like you never know what's behind the next door or at the table right next to you.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes kids have this sense of like curiosity and they're going to just like ask questions or jump into things in a way that as adults we may be a little bit more reserved sometimes.
Yes.
And it opens up the most. I mean, that probably wouldn't have happened had,
No,
right? Like, how
no.
cool is that? I love it.
Her for my PR days. We worked with her. Did contracts with her. I didn't recognize her. I didn't know she left the business. I didn't know she was doing this. And there you go.
Yeah. So serendipitous. So
Like,
I love it. Okay. I know I'd ask this. What's on deck this summer for Doña Vega and for you with just hosting? I know you have some fun travel, which I'm very jealous of, but what are you working on? Just kind of thinking hosting, entertaining. I think you'll have a presence at Aspen Food and Wine coming up very soon.
yes. So
Yeah.
for I it's hard to find the liquor business with the big boys. It's a lot of
Yep.
so I'm gonna go to Japan. I'm gonna take a break,
Mhm.
come back in July, do a few activations here locally. Then I'll be in Texas doing trade shows there. And we're also launched Vegas last week. So
Amazing. Congratulations.
I thank you. So
Mm.
this has massive potential with just a handful of accounts if we really focus there. So it is stayed away. So I'm gonna really try to do give some real attention there, as well as Texas to grow those two markets because the agave, they're called agave states because it's just a huge agave consuming states there.
Yeah, no, completely. I was talking to a company that's relatively new. They launched like 6 months ago, and it's a clean energy drink. And they have gotten really widespread distribution because they don't have as many rules as you guys do. Also, great branding, fun brand. But I was talking with chief of staff and just like, how are you finding distribution? And talking, she's like, it's cans in hands. It's cans in hands. It's
Yep.
getting everyone to taste, and people have to try. And so you've got to get hyper focused in these local. And again, you've got it with those agave states, and then you never know what's going to work or who you might find and bump into.
Sure. It's
Yeah,
all of our budgets are being put to consumer tastings at liquor stores. Like
yeah.
repeat, repeat, repeat. That's where it's at. They're going to come back. I hope that they see it in a restaurant and go back and play hands out from the others. But at the end of the day, it's base renting.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gotta be a lot of hustle. I was gonna say, I don't know many women that hustle as hard as you do. It's insanely impressive. I loved watching because I think some people do and some people don't. And I find the people who hustle as hard as you do and a few other close friends very far and few between. And it's so admirable. So
They-
I love it. Okay. I know that you have got a really full day. So we're going to keep this episode a little bit shorter, but is there anything else that would be like really fun to share or that you want to share with our audience today before we let you get back to your wild, crazy, busy life?
I don't know. When it comes to entertaining, I wish there was something like a party tricks again. Early on, I never grew up with this and trying to figure out to entertain, and it kind of just develops as you just grow older and you find good friends and whatnot. But how an easy way to set a table. Back in college, you have friends over, but to have that extra element just makes something so much more special. And the guests leave talking about it, and it does bring that extra sparkle to
Yeah.
the place. You can have great conversation, laughter, music, but the setting is, I think, probably the most important thing. And I just now getting my feet wet last few years and learning how to do this. I wish I had learned much earlier on.
Well, I think we master things at different times. And I think now that you are, and like, it's also people appreciate stuff at different periods of life. So even if you had
True.
known this and mastered it earlier, maybe subconsciously it would have been noticed. I think it's just always constant learning that we have in this crazy, crazy little life. But all right, if you haven't yet, please, please try Doña Vega Mezcal. It is so good. And check out our partner perks because you'll find it on our page. We've got some goodies, but seriously, go ask at your bar if they have it. Go to your liquor store if they don't. Ask them to carry it. Also, as like Sonia's social media is so good. I love again the branding, the some of the images that you select, some of the captions on it. It's one of my like accounts that I love following. So and I get targeted by your ads, which I don't know if you knew that, but I do. And I love that. Or at least I used to. I'm not on social a ton right now, but I loved it. So thank you so much for joining. And again, go check her out.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here.
Thanks, Sonia.
Bye.